Hello and welcome to this exciting Love Reading for Kids Author Event. My name's Amy McKay and I am delighted to be joined today by comics genius James Turner. Hello, James.
Hello.
James is going to be telling us all about his hilarious new comic, Toby and the Pixies, Worst King Ever. Here it is. It was published by David Fickling Books on the 6th of June. It's completely nuts and I loved every single page. It is great fun. James is an illustrator, a cartoonist, and a comic writer. He's worked on lots and lots of books and webcomics. I'm sure lots of you will recognize his work. He did Star Cat, which I know a lot of people know. That won the British Comic Award. He is, as I say, an all-round comic genius, and I can't wait for our chat. So, James, I loved Toby and the Pixies. I've been really, really looking forward to our chat, and I think a lot of that is because, if I'm honest, I think you must be a little bit bonkers. Um, but not everybody will have been lucky enough to read it so far. So can you start us off, please, by telling us a little bit about it?
Yeah, Toby and the Pixies is about sort of an ordinary schoolboy called Toby. He's a little shy, he's a little retiring, but he's pretty ordinary. And then one day, he's had a bad day. He has an unfortunate incident with a garden gnome, and due to that, he ends up becoming the king of the Pixies. If he finds out that there's a secret kingdom of pixies hidden at the bottom of his rather overgrown garden, and because he squashes the old king he becomes by pixie law he becomes the new king, and now the pixies are falling over themselves to try and help him with his everyday problems, but unfortunately the pixies get everything wrong, and they use their magic in ways that make Toby's life very difficult, and he has to learn to live with these weird little characters constantly getting involved in his life.
It is just so fun. Just listening to you talk about that, I'm already like, oh, I want to know about that. I want to know about that. It's I love Toby, and the Pixies are just fantastic. Yeah. So I am going to stick to the questions we agreed, though. So my first one is: when I introduced you, I described you as an illustrator, a cartoonist, and a comic writer. What's the difference? Right? Can you tell us what the difference in those jobs are, and maybe how they all relate to the process of creating Toby and the Pixies?
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose an illustrator would just be just doing the pictures.
Okay.
A comics writer would be just doing the writing, and then
Yeah.
being a comics creator is when you do the whole thing,
Right.
and you write and you draw. And I've done all of them. And yeah, so for this book, I'm just the writer, and we have the artist who lives in Canada, and I've never met him, but he's a brilliant artist. And it's just a slightly different sets of skills, but it's very interesting to work in all those different ways.
Yeah. So do you come up with the story first, and then he creates the pictures? How much is there any? Do you work together? Any collaboration, or is it all done separate if you've never met?
Yeah, so I definitely came up with the story first. It took us a little while to find, the right artist for the job, but I spent some time, figuring out the characters, figuring out the story. But once we had the artist, then he came up with the designs for the characters based on what I'd written, and so he's very much like designed the entire sort of visual look of the whole thing, and I've just sort of, but I'm still involved in that process. I'm like, say, oh, this design's good, this design's not quite right. So I'm involved all the way through, and when he's drawing the comics, I always get to see those comics before they, get colored in and before they get sent to the comic. So I'm always like, making little adjustments, saying, "Oh, this isn't quite right. This pixie should look angrier. This pixie should look more frightened." So there's those sorts of feedback that I get to give him, which is really it's fun. It's like sometimes the drawing. I really enjoy drawing, but it's also a lot of work, and sometimes it's fun to have somebody else do the drawing for me, and then I can just be like, "No, change this a bit, change this a bit," and I don't have to do the hard work.
So almost like you've got your own drawing pixie in a way.
Yeah, he is a sort
Yeah.
of magical character.
I love it. You are such a good pairing together because the concept and the idea, and it is just mental. And then how he's brought it to life is fab. I'm just looking through it now, and every page makes me smile. Were the characters then that when you saw them and his first idea of them, and you were like, oh my God, that's what was in my head?
I think it took a few goes. They were like he because that's sort of part of, I mean, of anyone trying to design a new character, I think you always go through a lot of different ideas. That's the best way to design a character, is to draw lots and lots of different versions, and then you slowly begin to be like, oh yeah, these versions are good. Let's do several versions that look a bit like this, and you end up gradually, almost like an evolution, getting to the sort of the designs that we end
Yeah.
up with in the book. So there were versions where the Pixies were all covered in rubbish. There was one where they were dressed as teapots and had like juice cartons on them and things like that. But in the end, we decided to go this way, and we end up with the Pixies that we know and love now.
We do love them. They're hilarious. Okay, so I'm just thinking of our audience. A lot of them will be told, all the time that teamwork is so important and you've got to work nicely with others. Is that something that you enjoy doing then, or would you prefer to work independently?
No, I think being part of this team has been really fun. Like I say, I mean, if I did it all myself, for a start, it would take very long,
Yeah.
and it's hard work, and when I'm drawing my own scripts, which I do and I enjoy doing, there's something hard about the fact that if there's something that wasn't quite right in the script, I find it very hard to then draw it, because I'm like, oh, maybe there's a way that I can change this. Maybe so I get stuck. I get really stuck in my head when I'm drawing it. So having somebody else who didn't write it then go away and draw it, I think that makes it easier for them in a way to do that. And then in terms of working in it as a team, I feel it's really like rewarding, like having this back and forth, talking to him about ideas, and like I won't make too specific a suggestion. I'll say like, I'll make this, more exciting or something, and then seeing what he does that I might not have thought of is great. Like he always comes up with such great ideas that I wouldn't have done. So it's really a fun team to be in.
Great. I'm so pleased because it's such a fun book. It's nice to hear that the creation of it is fun as well. When you were first coming up with the idea of Toby and the Pixies, where did the inspiration come from? I'm thinking there might have been a neighborhood dispute and something really, really traumatic going on. Is that right?
That's a hard question to answer. I think originally the very first sort of spark of Toby and the Pixies was actually, there were no pixies at all. It was Toby was going to have a tribe of miniature cavemen living in his house. I had that it was, and that was it was barely an idea at all, but there was something in it that I sort of thought, oh, maybe there's something there, and I think I must have just liked the idea of an ordinary person, an ordinary kid having little people running around causing mayhem in his life. And I think that was all it was. It was just something that tickled me as an idea. There's probably, something I've watched or read that I don't even remember reading, but it's given me this nugget of an idea, and it's slowly expanded out and become this whole world.
It's fab. And I think the fact that he is an ordinary boy brings so much else to the story as well, because you can put yourself in his place. And it's that idea of like, what would you do? And he's also dealing with school and popularity issues and all of that. And I thought you really, really blend those two worlds nicely. Is that a difficult thing to do, or does that come quite naturally?
Yeah, I mean, until now, most of my stories have been quite fantastical. Starcat, is set in
Yeah.
space, and there's and the things I've written before that haven't had much of a basis in the real world. So this is one of the first stories I've written that's really had that connection. And I think yeah, if anything, I do find the stories set in a school the harder ones to write than the ones that are set purely in the Pixie Kingdom, where there's no rules and anything can happen. But I think I end up drawing, from my own sort of experiences, and how I felt when I was that age, and sort of, Toby's definitely a part of me that, possibly the worst parts of me, but he's I draw on those experiences of being embarrassed, being shy, those sorts of things. So I hope that sort of resonates with people.
Oh, I did. I mean, I work in a school and it really did with me. There's a lot of it's very familiar. And I like the way, I was just looking at the page there, you bring in the fun of school as well. So things like this, the character, I was trying to find his name. I want to say Joe, and I apologize if I'm wrong. But there's Joe who walks around and he's an influencer, and he's always filming himself, and that's really, really familiar. And I know those students, and I thought that was great. It was, and then of course there's a bit where the PE kit. Could you tell the audience a little bit about the PE kit? Because I absolutely love that. I'm just going to see if you can see my page here. So Toby has forgotten his PE kit. We've all been there, and we all know the dreadful things that will happen when you forget your PE kit.
Yeah, so he's he didn't actually forget it. The Pixies ate it.
Oh yes, of
So
course, sorry.
but yes, the result is the same. He turns up to PE without a PE kit, and of course the rule is if you don't have a PE kit, you have to wear the kit from lost property, which is awful and smelly, and no one wants to wear it. But luckily, of course, the Pixies have a magical solution to help. They always have a helpful solution. So they suggest making him a magical outfit using the creatures of the forest. And Toby, thinks, that sounds okay. He wants to, he wants to be good at sport. He wants to, fit in. So he agrees. But unfortunately, the magical forest creatures that the Pixies choose are slugs. So the slugs creep in and crawl all over Toby and form themselves into a little a sports kit, and the slugs help him to play football, and it's quite. I mean, it doesn't sound very nice, but they do help him to play football. So I suppose it's it's a two-edged sword.
It's fantastic. It's so funny. It's an absolute joy to read. And then once the PE kit is no longer needed, we won't tell you what happens to it, but even that is it's hilarious. I loved it. I could talk about it all day, all the little bits of this book that were fantastic. I can't wait for other people to read it. But in a way, other people have read it before, because am I right in thinking it was a comic strip before you turned it into a book?
Yes.
Yeah.
They've all appeared in the Phoenix.
So can you tell us a little bit? So it was a comic strip in the Phoenix. How have you now adapted it into a book? So I imagine formatting's different, and the simple fact of having to have a longer story. How did that work?
Yeah, so the Phoenix pages are sort of twice the size. So what we've done is we've broken each page from the Phoenix down into 2 pages worth of book. There's a sort of I used I actually have a background in mathematics, so I used my mathematical background to figure out a way to divide one page of 12 panels into 2 pages of 6 panels, but except the 6 panels you can't just cut the page in half, because then your book would be a funny shape. So we had to figure out a way to arrange the panels. That was the sort of slightly boring mathematical part of the problem. And then it was all about figuring out, in terms of like getting a story for a long book, it was really about just sort of finding the sort of highs and lows of all the stories we had, picking out a selection of those stories and thinking how do we tell a story. It's not necessarily like one long story, but to give it the feeling of being like, okay, there's a slow growth of like Toby getting to know the Pixies, Toby getting to hate the Pixies, and then Toby maybe getting to like the Pixies again at the end. So it's about sort of picking your stories and what order to put them in.
It's fantastic. You've done such a good job. I'm laughing there at the idea of, I can hear all the maths teachers that I work with, the idea that you will need maths in your future career. And actually prove here, working in comics, you still need to be good at maths. Fantastic. You mentioned the Phoenix there, and I know most of our viewers will know the Phoenix. They'll know what a fantastic thing Phoenix comic is. But for anybody who doesn't, can you just introduce them to that, please?
Yeah, the Phoenix is a weekly children's comic. It's mostly delivered by post. I think you can get it in some shops. And it's full of like all sorts of different stories. There's a lot of funny stories. Bunny versus Monkey is in there. Mega Robo Bros, those sorts of things. But there's also like adventure comics, and there's like, it's quite serious comics. It's really like such an interesting mix. It's such a fantastic thing to have, and it's full of puzzles and all sorts of things. And yeah, it's a brilliant comic, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. I've been a part of it for the last more than 10 years now that it's been running. It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. It must be something you'd be really proud to work with, and know that joy that when it drops through the letterbox. It's we have a lot of them in our school library, and they're just so popular. And there's that beauty for those of you watching who haven't come across a Phoenix comic before. You must check it out, because it's that joy of, here's one, look at that, seamless. Being able to dip into it, it's a fantastic thing. And then from that, we get amazing books like this that come into creation. But think about the creation. As I was reading it, I felt there was quite a lot of influence from maybe classic comics of your youth in here. Have you always been a comic book lover?
Yeah, I definitely grew up reading comics. I've always, when I was young, our local library had loads of Tintin and Asterix comics, so I would constantly be getting those out. And then we had a local bookshop that had a big selection as well. So things like Calvin and Hobbes was a big influence on me. I think that's
Yeah.
probably comes through quite strongly. So those sorts of things, and all sorts of comics I pick up, and they've probably all worked their way in there to some extent, more or less.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because when I was reading it, I was like, oh, it's really got that feel to it, that absolute like zany. You don't quite know where it's going to go. It is very, yeah, in the spirit of Calvin and Hobbes. It's beautiful. Um, if we've got young people watching then who are interested in comics and want to read more, who read this and love it, where would you suggest they go next, or where do you start?
What in terms of what they would read next?
Yeah, yeah. Have you got any recommendations? Any of yours, maybe, or others?
Yeah, so my other books I've written Starcat. There's two books of Starcat comics out there. I think a third one's coming at some point. You can go older. I had a comic called Super Animal Adventure Squad that you could probably still get a hold of. But yeah, I mean, and really, I recommend getting the Phoenix, because then there's so many things in it, and a lot of those end up being books. So if there's something in there that you like, you can usually get a book full of it. So it's, that's a great way to go from there.
And discovering as well, I think, the styles that you like and the different types of stories and all the fab. On that, I think the Phoenix has been quite responsible in a lot of ways. We are having, it feels like a bit of a boom for comics in the UK at the moment. We've been quite backwards in that compared to Europe, where they're much more respected. And well, to me, I think David Fickling Books and Phoenix are having an awful lot to do with that. You mentioned Bunny versus Monkey in particular. Do you feel like that's happening? Like, as someone in the industry, do you feel like they're getting the respect that they deserve?
Yeah, I think you just if you go into a big bookshop at the moment, you'll often see in those
Yeah,
front row of like top 10 books. It's amazing and so nice to see there's comic books there. There's Bunny versus Monkey, Dogman is up there, which I
yeah,
think has been also a huge effect. The popularity of that has helped everyone. So it's really nice to be able to see it as a sort of respected format in the comic shop, in the bookshops, and see that booming. It's really nice. I mean, and just the fact that I've been able to work for this new comic for 10 years, and now I'm working for them constantly, is great to have that much work available for comics creators.
Oh, it's fantastic. And it's so great, I think, for young people as well, those who enjoy the comics, that there's more choice out there and that they are more respected now. And that hasn't always been the case. And yeah, I think we're so lucky. Thinking about those young people though, and as I've mentioned, I work in a school, so I've certainly come across people using this particular phrase, and I think some of our younger audience will have done as well. What advice would you give to someone who is faced with the proper book phase, that idea that a comic isn't a proper book? You and I know that's rubbish, but what would your reply be?
I think it's difficult. I mean, in a way, a comic isn't. You can't really compare a comic to a book. It's like, it's like saying television isn't a proper book. It's a completely different art form, and it can do. A comic book can be anything. There's very serious comic books. There's comic books that deal with very adult topics that aren't suitable for children. So to say that a comic book isn't grown up seems a nonsense to me,
Yeah,
when it's such an incredible art form that can be used for anything, just like television or a book. There's books for children and there's books for grown-ups. They're all books, but to say well, it's not a grown-up subject it seems silly to me, because that's like saying all books are for children. It
yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It really is, that entire thing. And I do think it's lessening all the time, particularly maybe due through the teaching profession. I think they're finally coming on board as well. And we know young people are loving comics. And I think the Phoenix has had a lot to do with that. And you have in turn as well. And we're really lucky, because, as you say, an art form in their own right, but as a reading experience, that whole visual thing and all the information that comes from the pictures, it's such I think when times are difficult, comics are really, really nice to turn to as well. I don't know if you feel the same. Do you read them in your own time as well, or are they very much work for you?
No, I definitely read them in my own time. I think something that I enjoy about comics is you often get a lot from reading them multiple times. Like when I get a comic, often what I'll do is I'll read them sort of for the story first. So I'll almost rush through them and just read the story, but then I'll go back and read them again, like really paying attention to the art and enjoying the sort of each page is an artwork and enjoying that at that level. And it's sort of they take so much. There's so much you can appreciate in a comic that there's a lot of depth to them.
Yeah, oh, there really is. And yeah, I like that process of going back through them and kind of rediscovering and getting to know the characters a little bit deeper. And as you were saying that, I'm flicking through as you're talking, and I'm on a page where there's a mime craft poster as opposed to a Minecraft, and the illustration there. And yeah, they are really, really nice for rereading. We've talked a lot. You've mentioned you've worked for Phoenix for 10 years. I feel like a lot of people watching will, in the nicest possible way, probably hate you a little bit for that. The idea of making a job out of comics, I mean, that's the dream. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey and how that's worked for you?
Yeah, it's been quite a sort of winding path to get here. Like I said, my background is in mathematics. So like before I went to like university, I was making comics and drawing all the time, but I was never very good at sort of art at school. So
Uh-huh.
the sort of things that school art wanted of me, I wasn't necessarily interested in or wasn't, yeah, I wasn't prepared for. So when it came to going to university, I did maths because that was something that I'd done well at school, and I just sort of I took the easy route, I suppose.
Mhm.
And then when I left university, so I was working as a programmer, but I felt like I couldn't draw anymore. Like I'd sort of forgotten how to draw. So I started as a way to learn to draw again. I started making comics, and I would put those comics online. I did a comic called The Unfeasible Adventures of Beaver and Steve about a lizard and a beaver who were best friends. And sort of putting that online, it gave so people started to read it, which was
Mhm.
fantastic. I was very lucky to be online at that time. And that got enough popularity that I met other cartoonists and I got put in touch with the people who publish the Phoenix.
Mhm.
And then, there was another comic that they published before the Phoenix, and I was involved in that. And then when they started the Phoenix again, they got me to write for that. And it's definitely come from me being a cartoonist for myself first, and didn't really expect to make it a career, but I've been so lucky and to have managed to find the people or get the people to find me that that found my work and liked my work and end up where I am today.
It's such a nice story about pursuing what you love. I think that idea that you don't have to monetize everything, and actually, if you pursue what you love, sometimes that things will happen just because you enjoy them and you're good at them
Yeah,
and
yeah, you should.
practice.
Yeah, definitely do it for the pleasure of it first.
Yeah,
Don't aim to make a career of it. But if you're doing it and you love it and you keep doing it, you'll get better and better, and it can happen.
yeah. Is that what you would tell? So if we've got anyone sitting watching who dreams of being a comic creator themselves, is that the advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I definitely say, above all, make comics. You don't the more you make comics, the better you'll get. And you'll learn a lot by doing. I mean, read comics as well, obviously, but it's practice, practice, practice. And but don't think of it as practice. Think of it as making a fun comic
Joy.
that you like, and then put those comics out in the world, show them to people. Don't be shy about showing them to people, and people will be interested, and people will follow it up, and things can happen.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. Um, is there a big difference between, I know we've talked about how this book came into life and pulling all the comics together, going from that idea of drawing your comics and sharing them with people and maybe comic strips, does it ever feel a little bit daunting, the idea of going from the strip to an entire book? Or is it a bit more natural than that?
I mean, that's the nice thing about doing it for the Phoenix first is that each story is quite self-contained, so you don't necessarily worry too much about the whole book coming at once. So I'm able to do it in sort of little chunks. So each story is only sort of, the longest stories are only sort of 12 pages or 24 pages in the book. So as long as I can get through that little chunk, which doesn't seem too daunting, then you can put all those chunks together and get something big at the end. So it's about making it bite size, and then it's not too intimidating.
Making it chunky, and maybe that's why they work so well for us as readers. It's okay. So moving on a little bit, I want to talk about the humour in here, because this is one of those dangerous books that you would have to be a little bit careful about reading them in public, because you are liable to start laughing. Is that really important to you as you're writing the books? Do you have the jokes in mind or the humour, or do you have that later?
It can vary, to be honest. Like, I mean, I love to tell jokes, and I love to be silly. And sometimes some stories I'll think of the joke first and then write a story around it. And then other stories I'll think of the story first and then think of, all the silly things that the characters will do. There's always something silly that a pixie can do. So then the jokes come second. But there's no right or wrong way to do it, I don't think. And it's just fun to spend time with these silly characters and be surprised by what they're going to say next.
Yeah, I imagine it is a lot of fun. I can almost imagine you sitting at your desk making yourself laugh as you're creating.
Yeah, that's definitely my goal, is to make myself laugh. It gets difficult after making comics for 20 odd years to still surprise myself, but it's I try my best.
Is it difficult in that? Because there are some times where I thought, and I said at the start, like, I was thinking James is going to be a little bit bonkers, because some of the ideas in here, they are absolutely crazy. We talked about the PE kits. There's a scene with a bathtub full of badgers in it. Is it difficult to come up with increasingly zany things, or is that your life in general? You look quite normal.
Well, I mean, I don't find those things too difficult. I think anyone can come up with a mad idea. You just think of something normal, and then something that doesn't go with it, and then there you go. You've got an idea. So think of a PE kit and slugs, and you've got a slug PE kit. Think of a bathtub and badgers. You've got a bathtub full of badgers. I've unlocked my secret writing technique. Anyone can use it.
Just put it all together, okay? And you make it sound a lot easier than I suspect it is. I think you're underselling yourself a little bit there. One of the things that really, really made me laugh was at one point, Mo, who is Toby's best friend, he has to go on a quest, doesn't know what his quest is going to be, and then there's this book of quests, and someone even says, conveniently, there it is. The humour in that was really clever, but it got me thinking about quests in general. So I wondered if there was a quest that you would like to pursue, like your future ambitions or anything that you'd really like to do.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm trying to start a new comic now for the Phoenix, and I would like to go on a quest to get the confidence and the courage to actually finish it and write it. It's difficult getting a new comic off the starting blocks. So if I could go on a quest to find the ability to always write and never feel like I've got no ideas, because there's definitely times when I feel like I've got no ideas. So yes, I would go on a quest for the fountain of ideas, where I can drink deeply and never be stuck for ideas again.
Excellent. That sounds like a good fountain. I've got a quest for you, though. So one of the quests that Mo faces, or it's in the book of quests, is to spell unconscious. So without looking, can you spell unconscious?
UNCON. I can't. SCIOUS.
Yes, well done. Very impressive. I'm glad that was you, because there's no way I'd have got the S's and the C's. But yeah, sorry, that was a really horrible thing to do. Okay, and then also Toby and the Pixies. They are his Pixies, and we've talked about they will do jobs for him. And there's some, where they're going to have a go at doing his homework. It maybe doesn't work out particularly well, but they're trying it for him. Their hearts are definitely in the right places. If you had your own little band of Pixies following you around and worshipping you, what jobs would you give to them?
I'd probably get them to constantly deliver me like snacks and crisps, bring me like a little, I can imagine a little chain of them passing a bowl of crisps along their backs, each one passing to the next one, perhaps one crisp at a time, and maybe running up and dropping them in my mouth while I'm working. There you go. A little snack delivery system of Pixies. That might not
Look,
be a bad idea.
can see them just walking over your shoulders now. That'd be fantastic. Nice. Although there is the problem there, I'm not sure what sort of snacks they would bring you. If
Yes,
it
I'd
was
have
a
to,
pick, yeah,
but just have my mouth open. I'd end up with a lot of beetles and dead leaves in there.
yeah, it was the when Mo eats the leeches.
Oh
I thought that
no.
was hilarious. That was really clever. Um, one person in the book who is a little bit obsessed with snacks or food is Toby's dad.
Mhm.
I really liked him as a background character, and he's always trying to perfect or find the perfect slice of toast. I
Yes.
just thought I found that really funny, and I feel like maybe that's something that we've all secretly been doing and we don't realise that we are. Do you eat a lot of toast as you're creating? Is that your secret snack?
I do enjoy a bit of toast, and yeah, it's very difficult to get the exact right level of browning. Like,
Yes.
you know,
When you're in a hotel and it's too, and you have to put it through that toaster twice, and there's going to be
yeah,
flames, and
exactly.
yeah,
Or pop it up part way through so it doesn't
yeah.
burn. It's a constant juggling
Mm-hmm.
act, and it's you know, it's been the bane of my life. I can
Uh,
empathize with Toby's dad in trying to create that perfect slice.
yeah. Well, I hope he achieves it. I really do. Um, at the end, Princess Sugar Snap, who I particularly liked, have to say, she tells us, promises us, in fact, that Toby and the Pixies will return. Is that true? Is Princess Sugar Snap telling us the truth? And what can we expect?
Yes, there are more Toby and the Pixies books coming, so there's at least three more planned.
Excellent.
And yes, and the next one will be the sort of one of the villains of book one is Steph, who's
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a bully. In the next book, it's going to be about her also finding out about the Pixies
Okay.
and what that ends up leading to. So there's that's a bit of a threat that the villain finds out about Toby's secret.
Perhaps we've got, so we can look forward to another three of them. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What fantastic news. Oh, I look forward to those. It's a great series then. Excellent. James, thank you so much for joining me. It was lovely to talk to you. You're not quite as bonkers as I thought, but you're just as much fun as I expected. Um, it's been great. It really is a superb book. I can't recommend it enough. As I said at the start, it was published by David Fickling Books on the 6th of June, and it is now available to buy on the Love Reading for Kids website. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been lovely.
Bye.
Bye.